Altered Beast hit the arcade in 1988 with visuals that grabbed your attention with its bold sounds and huge sprites. You play as a centurion resurrected by Zeus to rescue his daughter from Neph, who sends out an army of creatures to stop you. Bit lazy really, as Zeus could just fry every fucker in his path and do the job himself, but whatever. The game is set in ancient Greece, where you'll roam through a graveyard into the underworld and eventually take on Neph's final form. There are 5 stages, and each have multiple types of creatures that will attack you. Your character can power up with the aid of spirit balls, which can be found by attacking the white, 2-headed wolves. Once a 3rd spirit ball has been acquired, your character will transform into a beast. Each beast will have its own power, which can help cut through enemies quicker. The ports that followed on home consoles wouldn't be as great as the arcade, however. Let's look at some to see which ones would be any good, or just a huge disappointment. Of course, being a Sega title, we would see a release on the Mega Drive, and compared to the arcade, it doesn't look too bad. The graphics look just as good, with some parallax scrolling and large sprites. The music is good too, and faithful to the arcade. Sound suffers slightly, but not a great deal. This is more with the vocal samples. When Zeus speaks at the start, it sounds like he's saying "wise from your grave," but you can still make out what he says, and has actually become very memorable for it. All 5 stages are present, and even the transformation looks pretty good too. Not as many frames of animation as the arcade, but still looks effective. The Master System got its own port, but suffered a lot. There's no rise from your grave vocal, but there is a power-up sample. The graphics don't look great on this version, but they aren't dreadful. However, when it comes to the boss, you don't get any background at all. The frames of animation are poor, and make the gameplay very jerky. And with only 2 buttons, you still get all the moves from the arcade, but now you have to press both buttons at the same time to jump. Get it wrong and it can cost you some health. The hit detection is a bit crap, which again will cost you some health. And the beast transformation screen also loses some animation, but at least it's there. The music resembles the original score, but doesn't sound too great. The colour palette is an eyesore and looks a mess. I know these colours were used in all versions, but they just don't suit the Master System palette. This port also loses the 3rd stage, which is no big loss as it was shit anyway. On the Amiga, things look much better, although unlike the Mega Drive and Master System, this has a huge status bar across the bottom. This also appears on the ZX Spectrum port. Frame rate isn't so bad and looks more like the Mega Drive port, and the 1-button moveset is frustrating. You have to move a direction and fire to execute a different move. The beast transformation doesn't have a separate animation, but a tiny head swap in the corner of the screen. But there is a roaring sound effect for each beast, which sounds pretty good. Controls are quite difficult to begin with, but you can adjust to these. I found with the 2nd level boss that firing lasers meant holding down right and fire, which will make your character nudge to the right, forcing you towards the enemy and making contact, which results in energy loss. And the same with the electric charge attack. You work your way down whilst attacking, moving away from the weak spots. The music has the same tunes as the arcade, but altered slightly, sounding more like an electronic 80s soundtrack. There are other ports for this game, but they just get worse. The ZX Spectrum is as you'd expect it to look with its horrible colours and sound, although the sprites do look good, and the music instantly kicks off with the post-transformation theme, which doesn't really work as it sounds too hyped up from the start. It's clear that the best version to have is the Mega Drive version, as it's very close to the arcade. It does miss a few features that the system just wasn't capable of achieving, but it still would have been a great game to pick up if you love the arcade game. Sprite animation differed a little bit, as well as the sprite design, like the flaming ball of shit he throws as a werewolf. It's a punch motion on the Mega Drive, whereas the arcade is more like a Ryu style Hadouken. Hadouken! Hadouken! Same for the dash move. The Mega Drive has his knee raised while moving forward, but the arcade version has a flying kick. Not important, but just small alterations. Of course, the ultimate version and the best way to play this, as always, is the arcade. But the Mega Drive wins for the home system.
Power up!
Well, Welcome to your doom.
Thanks for watching. If for some strange reason you like my videos, please consider subscribing so I don't feel so unpopular. Do you know what I mean?